Hi there, my name is Kendrick, and today I get to interview Donovan. So Donovan, welcome, man.
Hi.
So can you tell us your full type, please?
Yes, it was typed just the other day as a double feminine Fi-Se, consume, play, blast, sleep.
All right. And then when you got the results back, what did you think and how did you feel?
Um, I kind of had this idea that maybe, well, it's no big deal. I'm not I'm not too worried about the results of the typing. I'm just going to get it in, see what it was. But when I actually got it, I realized I had gotten attached to the type that I previously thought I was. So there you go. And I had thought that I was ISTP, so instead of ISFP, and I thought that it was TI and instead of FI. But I had thought I was the same modalities and the same animal order. It was just the functions that got messed up. So I had realized that I had put a little bit of identity on that TI. And when I kind of spent a lot of time thinking about it that day, and since then, and I've really been connecting with the idea of FI first, so introverted feeling. And it makes a lot of sense as even compared to the TI because of how I'm deciding to do things. I choose to do things based off of what I want. And it's a constant war between what I know to be maybe right or logical versus, but I just really want this or don't want that. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, I totally get you. Like as a lead FI, it's not lead FI. I have FI also. I totally get what you're saying. It's like sometimes this is not logical at all, but I just really want it badly, and I don't care, So let's talk about that. So your lead FI, talk about like if you want something, you just want to get it or just want to do it. You don't care about like the logic behind it anymore.
That happens, and I mean, over the years, I've really learned to not just sort of jump at the next thing that I'm really into, and I do find myself, and it's probably because of high consume, I find myself really diving into stuff that holds my interest and really exploring it. That could apply to pocket knives or OPS typology or MBTI, or it could apply to any number of categories. I'm a big fan of music. And so I'll go through waves in my life where I'm really exploring a thing that I love. And conversely, I find it hard to really put in the work to learn something that I'm not connecting with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally get you. Totally get you. Like you can't just work for the sake of like money, It has to be something that you enjoy. Of course, the money's important, but
Yeah.
you also need to like your job,
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So I want to cover the elephant in the room here. So I know a lot of people will like call me out on this and say, okay, Kendrick, you're interviewing someone that just got their type back. They haven't given enough time to process their type. And then you're also sleep last. So that's like double the layer, right? So I think it's fine. So I want to focus this interview on you as opposed to the type, but I'll attach the type to it. But I want to focus on you per se. So your double activated play, can you talk about like really enjoying like that tribe interaction? And you're an IP, right? But you're like an extroverted IP, like the most extroverted, like ISFP type. Do you enjoy those tribe interactions, especially like, let's start with that. Do you enjoy tribe interactions?
Yes. So I'll give you a couple, I guess, stories about how that might be, or summaries. I would say that when I started programming was about 8 years ago. And before that, I was self-employed. And that transition was really amazing for me because that was when I really discovered how much I enjoyed working with others and building a dialogue together, a friendship based on work, based on accomplishing things. And I'm constantly able to accomplish tasks and work stuff out. And a lot of people tend to maybe have different styles. Maybe they will work together to solve a problem, or maybe they'll go off in a corner and really hunker down. And I think I do both, but predominantly what I find is that I put myself into situations, or I get into situations where I'm leading something. I'm doing many things at once. I'm not focusing on one thing at a time. And that can be a bit of a problem sometimes, but I would say that overall, I find that exhilarating. I really enjoy moving from one thing to the next. I enjoy just the shared accountability of shared responsibility of work. And so that could be a lot of things. That could be my programming job. That could be playing music. That's been a solitary activity for a lot of my life, but in various aspects, like if I'm in the creative process. But then it's less solitary when I'm playing with the band and when I'm doing just really enjoying the activity together. And so I guess that's how I would summarize that.
So your play is also ST, so it's like the doing kind of play. Yeah. And in the classes, Dave and Shan did talk about ISFPs compared to, like, let's say an INTP. You guys do want to connect with people through work. That seems to be like very high up in terms of like a goal, and you're doing that now, and obviously you already confirmed that you enjoy doing that. But I want to go to the specifics now. Your play is ST, so it's like the actual doing aspect. Okay, so a good example is like let's say you're gonna be moving like let's say you're doing an event and you're like setting up tables and chairs and you're doing it together with other people. Like that's something that would be enjoyable, not enjoyable or something that you would seek. But it's not just that specific example, like something along those lines, right? Like you're doing programming, right? So as you said, you're creating something together with the tribe, but you also have NT Blast, right? Which is kind of like Dave's Blast, like NT. So like the INTJ's kind of Blast. So you also like to figure things out and to teach it to the tribe, like whatever you figured out. Can you talk about like those two coins there, those two animals, where you like to do with a tribe and also like to figure things out for the tribe,
Yeah. I guess that ST play would be double feminine, right?
Yeah, right. You have double feminine play also, so you're gonna be very flexible with that, supposedly.
I do find that makes me movable, flexible, wiggly. I can be, I think it's that lead FI that will make me kind of stick to my guns on certain things, especially because that's masculine. But typically speaking, when I'm working to accomplish a goal, my mind is focused on the task at hand, right? My goal is to get this thing done and to do it well and to do it the best that I can. And so FI is probably on doing my all on it. And but ST and NT would go hand in hand for me because I'm doing custom software for businesses in my area, and we're just getting into the software stack that they have and figuring out solutions to their problems, acting almost as a business console. And so a variety of industries, a variety of tech stacks, and we just get in there and assess their needs, and we're constantly problem solving, constantly looking through, finding the inefficiencies and improving them, working with them to meet their requests for new features. So there's just so many possibilities that you could run into, and there's many ways to solve a problem too. So I would say when I'm working for programming, I'm constantly having to figure things out, and then because I'm a manager or a team lead, I am having to blast that out, you might say, and ensure that my people, they have work to do, that they know how to do the job. They got the training. I'm explaining that. I'm providing the work for them by discussing with customers and pitching new projects. and determining what needs to be done. I'm, project managing it, to putting it into the system, and, figuring out deadlines and coordinating with other team leads for overlap. So on and on and on. And, but I really enjoy that process. And then specifically for the ST side, I would say that would be more like me working that stuff out loud, So I think NT might be a little bit more by myself, a little bit more focused. And then if I'm adding in that play, I'm figuring stuff out together. And I don't know, it kind of mixes up. And I might have a different answer and or something, but
yeah. Yeah, it's with the NT and SE, sometimes they do get mixed up. Like, I mean, because you're doing both, and especially if you have them both activated, then it's kind of hard to just like do one of them without the other,
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense what you're saying. I want to go to the other end now. Your sleep last. It's double masculine NF sleep. So this is going to be your purpose, your meaning. Now you are an IP, so I don't think that the sleep last would be the hardest thing in the world for you, just because as an IP, the default animal would be sleep, because sleep is like a decider animal and it's like self, essentially. Do you feel like you've gotten a chance to think about like what is the most important thing to you? Like what is your mission, your life, your purpose in life, and what you were put on this planet to do, essentially? Like, have you given any of those things some thought?
I've the reason why I got into typology at all was about a year or so ago, was because I was having struggles with this. And I grew up Christian, and I still consider myself Christian and believing in God, but I'm having doubts, and I've worked them out to be mostly based on organized religion, the things that people do or say is the one way to do things. And I've come across, there's been a lot of political and social upheaval in the last couple of years. That's pretty reasonable given circumstances, and presidents and COVID and all this stuff. And so it's definitely affected me in all areas of my life, and it's putting me in a place where I've been doubting some of these core like values or purpose in life stuff. Now, historically, a lot of this would have been based upon the decisions that I made and the path that I'm walking, which is I'm married, and I've been married 13 years.
Wow.
To a wonderful woman, and she's amazing. And I have 3 kids. They are 6, 3, almost 4, and almost 1. And so having a third baby amidst all of the last couple of years, anyone having babies during the pandemic was probably losing their minds. But yeah, so for me, it's only been, I feel like more in the last the previous like 11, 12 years, kind of rediscovering where and working towards these goals that I had deemed worthwhile and providing me with validation and worth. And I felt validated by being married, validated by building a family, validated by seeking gainful employment to provide for my family, and doing the best that I can there. And so I still find an insane amount of value in all that stuff, but I'm trying to find validation not wrapped up necessarily in only those things. And I'm discovering what that is more. So I'm still processing.
Yeah, work in progress. Let's go look at the individual parts of that NF sleep. So let's look at your NI first. It's masculine NI. So I do see masculine NI being like a crazy function. It's like, and
I'm very curious about this, by the way. Sorry to interrupt. I'm looking at all these other things, and I'm like, yeah, ST, yeah. I'm getting it, NT, okay, cool. But how in the heck does masculine NF sleep last? How does that work? Because what I'm discovering is that the functions aren't so much you're really bad at something like TE or whatever, or even if I'm a class lizard and I have maybe more of a focus on the TE.
Right.
Well, I'm a class lizard. I don't know if that's worse or not, but in focusing on the NF, I find that it escapes me as to how it operates and what it's doing. And that may be just a function of not really knowing enough of the typology, but it's also a function of me being sleepless.
I spoke to an ISFP about this, and who was also sleep last, and she said to me that like when she goes to church, she gets insecure because there's like people that like would talk to her and they seem to be like very like spiritually connected, and they can say all this stuff about like Jesus Christ and religion, and she just can't like seem to be able to say any of those stuff that those other individuals in the church could say, you know. And
like a lot of religiousness or spirituality or whatever.
Yeah, like the spiritual talk kind of stuff. Like she just can't seem to say those things, or even talk about those things. They seem to be difficult for her as an ISFP with sleep last. And it's like the NF sleep last, right? So I don't know if you struggle with that, but there's a lot of people that would say like things that are more abstract and kind of out there, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I prefer the here and now, and that's kind of contrary to the point of Christianity. Well, not really, because the here and now is where we're, as Christians, we're called to be serving and improving their lives, but it's also we're supposed to believe in heaven, and that's where you kind of lose me, to be honest. It's very hard. So right. I don't want to be considered, it's not in my FI to be considered agnostic or even atheist, but it is very hard to connect to enough or woo waving wiggly fingers spirituality, religiosity nonsense. It's hard because it's not fact, it's not tangible, it's not, and I'm speaking of course in emphatic tones, but like I know, and that's kind of the point. I don't know, I don't really know, and I don't think anyone can really know, and taking things on faith is just hard. So that's where I'm at, and I can identify with this other person that you interviewed.
Yeah, it's definitely hard for people who are NF last. Like I have a third, and I believe in it strongly, but only because I'm balanced with NF and ST, so I can see the balance between those two different animals, right? Because NF and ST are the opposite, right? ST is like factual, what's true, NF is like what is this like emotional abstract value thing, like that's like Wulan, which is actually, though it is true. Like a good way to talk about NF is a vibe, right? Like let's say you're talking to someone and suddenly you feel like something's wrong, and you can't quite put your finger in it, because it's not like you can say, oh, this person moved their eyebrow up a little bit and now that means they're like insecure about something or they're upset about something. It's not something that's so tangible as that, right? It's just like suddenly something shifted in the vibe and you felt it, and there's something off, and this thing that's off needs to be addressed, otherwise it's going to get worse. I don't know if you've ever felt that, but like even though
probably considerably less than you, because I do take things at face value a lot, but I do notice like I'm taking in my perception of what they're, if I'm talking with someone, and if they do make those physical cues, however subtle, then we're going to notice them to whatever extent, and I would, and then to whatever extent I do notice that it does affect me, and maybe it might hit my emotions first, and I might not tangibly, it might be a subconscious thing, but it's still going to affect me, and so I think I see where you're going, but unless it's like more physical, it might be harder for me to kind of get it.
I think the way Dave explained it for himself, because he's the same animal stack as you, just like not animal stack, but like same functions, just different order. I mean, and same animal order, but same, like all the functions are the same. It's like when something's wrong with Shan, he said that he knows and he can tell the vibe is off, and he's not gonna do the ST doing without fixing the vibe first. But
No, that's actually legit. That's a real thing. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's happens more, when I know a person better.
Right.
So like with my wife, it's immediately apparent that
Yeah.
because I've known her for so long and we've been married for 13 years. And so, yeah, I can easily see when she's upset or when she's stressed. And I'm getting better actually over time at discerning what the reason for that might be, which is kind of crazy because it was not easy at first.
Right.
It could be, oh, is it me or is it some dumb thing I said or whatever. But yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I think for the NF sleeps like you, it's extra personal. So it's gonna be like a very small, narrow down people. Like for you, it could be as little as like your wife and your kids, and maybe your parents, or if you have like brothers sisters, right? So but it's not just that too. Like there's a lot of different variation or ways to use that NF sleep. Like I don't know if you've read what's his name? What's that ESFP's name? The double feminine one, the military guy from Navy SEAL. What's his name?
Ed something, or is it
not Jocko? Not Jocko. Jocko's the
slow talking guy, Jocko Willings?
Yeah, no, not Jocko. Jocko is also he also uses NF sleep, which is great. But I'm talking about the other guy, David Goggins. David Goggins.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you've read his book. Like,
I haven't read his book yet, but I began to read some Jocko Willink, but continue. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, so with David Goggins, he has the same sexual modalities as you, right? And he's also sleep blast. So I think he's a good example of someone that figured out that NF sleep. Now, his NF sleep is figured out for his specific type though, which is like an EP type. You're very EP-ish though as an IP. You're like an IP EP, right? So you could probably relate to like that subtype. You're probably chaotic, like outside of like this video call. I don't know, but like yeah.
I'll let other people judge on that.
Yeah. But so for him, like he learned about like the importance of self belief. And one of my favorite quotes in his book was how to be different among different people, because he was a Navy SEAL, right? So to get in Navy SEAL is already hard. So you already are a cut above the normal person. But even within the Navy SEAL, he was special, and he had to accept that he was someone special within the Navy SEAL. Like the Navy SEAL people would ask him to go party and stuff. He's like, nope. He's gonna stay with his routine, and focus on building himself up, his identity and whatnot, and which is crazy because he's tribal about self, and then he chose to do that, right? So that's definitely like a growth path for his specific type. And and then he kind of goes through like what matters most to him, and like he's saying, I noticed that people with NF sleep, especially those that like really work to develop it, they end up with like some kind of like mantra or code that they follow. And I think David Goggins is something that everyone can use. It's that good, and it's so original too, which I really love. And for him, it's the callous mind. Like you put yourself in enough hardship that your mind has callous and nothing can hurt you anymore. That's why his book's called "Can't Hurt Me," right? And if you like read all the stuff that he's gone through, oh my god, like there's no, like he is superhuman. Like a lot of emotional pain, if anything, from like abuse as a child and whatnot, and like growing up to supposedly be someone that should be a nobody, pull himself out of that situation, and now he's just so different from everyone.
So what's the key takeaway you would say, maybe regarding NF, that you gleaned from that from his story or his message?
It's locking. So for your specific, it's different for everyone, right? So this is going to be specific to you, anyone that has NF sleep, essentially, or people with NF consume can also use it. But it's having a code that it's an abstract code that you adhere to no matter what. Before you make any decision, this code is going to be your guiding code. So for him, it's having a callous mind, right? So when he's doing like those 100-mile marathons and he wants to give up, he'll just go back to that callous mind. Like, you know, it's an opportunity to make it even more callous, you know, to be even more
To
tougher.
Listen and to really see where he's coming from, where how he got to the point where that was his conclusion. I think the emphasis that I'm really getting is building a discipline within yourself. And I can definitely relate to a lack of discipline.
Yeah.
And affects your life, so I see a lot of value in that.
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, Joko's thing is discipline equals freedom, right? So that's also a really good one. My girlfriend is an INTJ jumper. So she also has her own NF sleep. And, it's kind of cool when you meet someone that has like lead NF sleep. They already know the answer to that. Like when I ask them, it's almost like, oh yeah, it's in my back pocket. I've been thinking about it for years, And my girlfriend's code is, what's the word? I'm trying to remember what it was. I had it on my top of my head. My SI's in the bottom, so I always forget this kind of stuff. Forgot. Sorry. It'll come back. Come back.
I'm sorry that I wasn't helping you figure it out, but I'm not very good at both staring into the camera and trying to read your mind.
No, it's something to do with like over resentment. Oh, I remember now. Discomfort over resentment. That's her code. Discomfort over resentment. So if she's if she has to deal with someone that is difficult to deal with, and there's something she wants to say, but she doesn't want to rock the boat because it's going to be discomforting.
Yeah.
But she knows if she doesn't speak up, she'll feel resentful towards that person. Right. So that's the code, discomfort over resentment. So no matter what, and it could be like an action too, like whether you, like let's say you have a dream and you decide to not go for it. Well, you're gonna resent yourself for not going it because the process to get there is very uncomfortable, right? So discomfort over resentment. That's her code. So whenever she makes a decision, she always goes back to that. Like no matter how bad it is, it'll make her cry, make her really insecure, make her scared. Always looks back, discomfort over resentment, right? So it's that. I think that's something that you would have to formulate. Like you're gonna have your own version of that. I don't know what it is. That's gonna be on you. I'd love to hear once you figure it out. But that's that. I mean, I don't know. Like I feel like at least you have some clues on how it works now. Like hearing other people kind of.
What's your code?
I don't have NF sleep. So.
Well, okay, so you don't need a code to live your life by.
I have so I have NF consume. So what I do is I consume other people's code and I take the best ones that I personally resonate with myself. So yes, I do have a few codes that I live by. So the first one is I use David Goggins, A Callous Mind, for sure. The other one that I consume is from Owen Cook, the ENFP, one of the alphas that Dave always talks about in the classes. And for him, it's also an FI code where he said that you should have, this is going to be very NF. You need to have an ecosystem of positive emotions. And the best way to explain what that means is like, let's imagine you have a table and the table has like 4 legs, right? So each of the leg is what keeps you happy or makes you happy. But if you take out two or three of those legs, then obviously your table's going to fall apart, meaning you're going to be unhappy, right? So, a lot of people, they put all their eggs in one basket. So there's like one thing that makes them happy. You take that out, oh, they're miserable as hell, right? So Owen Cook's philosophy is, have a variety of things that brings joy in your life. So if one thing gets knocked down, you're okay. You're going to be okay, right? So
just a simple diversification strategy where, you can make it if you lose this one egg in your basket.
Exactly. Like exactly what you said. But it has to be something that you're passionate about. It can't just be something like, oh, I like to eat candy. So if I'm sad, I'm just gonna eat some chocolates. I mean, like that's just called emotional eating. That's no longer that's not a healthy coping mechanism, right? It has to be like genuinely something that brings you joy, not something that, like.
Well, I found that over time, it was difficult for me in a way to be IP. I don't know if that's this false martyr syndrome where, I just feel guilty for wanting to pursue the things that I want. And then sort of kind of get myself in a holding pattern. And usually the things that I want are action oriented. They're things to do, not things to not do. And so then therefore, because I feel guilty about pursuing something that I want, I get in a holding or staying pattern. And then I just get very grumpy and you know, the thing that I want to do just, or a lesser thing that I want to do just sort of leaks out and I can't even stop myself. It might be, you know, binge consuming at that point for a lesser thing. But when I'm wanting to pursue stuff, I feel like I don't have permission to go forward and just do the thing. And I find that, you know, it's almost like a sense of impotence where it's just hard to get started on stuff. It's hard to feel like I can go here and do this or accomplish that or buy this thing and you know, improve. I want to do home improvements, but yet I can't ever face up to spend the money or do the research or put in the time or make a change. And so that kind of stuff drives me pretty crazy. I don't know if that's related to what we're talking about here, but I feel like it's partially in maybe this FI-TE kind of mix. And so I don't know if you had anything that you might add to that. What do you think about that concept?
It sounded like you want to do something that's SF and SD, which are your two saviors. It doesn't sound like it's like the genuine problem here. It seems like it sounds like it's a minor problem, but it doesn't sound like the major problem, right?
Sure.
Like a major problem would be like so yeah, there's like a bunch of stuff that you want to do, right? But what is the most important thing for you to do? You know, that's the thing that like long-term wise, like when you're 40 years older than you are right now, you look back and you're like, "Hot damn, I'm glad I did that," you know, or like I'm glad I you know, stayed the path, you know.
I think I don't have an answer for that exactly, but the longer term is that I want to be the kind of person that can pass over roadblocks, identify them, and move forward. But it's not that I want necessarily so much these specific things. I just don't want to be fighting myself.
It sounds like you want to be more NT from that description, because the person that can get through the roadblocks are people who are good at figuring out how to
Maybe
break through obstacles. So I don't know if that's the case, but that's what you just said, right? Like it sounded like NT, like you wanted to be more NT, you know, like have that like power to just, you know, any obstacle you can break through essentially. You're masculine NI, so you can just respect the sensory to achieve that, right? Yeah. But yeah, anyways, so like for me, like my third code would be like Brene Brown. I don't know if you've read her materials. Or her. Brene Brown.
I have heard that name, but through a friend of mine, she recommended her to me, but I haven't pursued it yet. I've kind of forgotten about it.
Yeah, I think like from like an FI perspective, that the three most important people to follow is Brene Brown, Owen Cook, and David Goggins. I think those three people. That's just my opinion. Like from my NF consume, those three people are the top of the top, because their materials is solid, it's practical. You know, like even David Goggins, when he says you want to have a callous mind, I mean, it makes sense, right? It just means you need to toughen up, right? Like you don't give up. Like no matter how bad things get, you don't give up. You feel like, oh, you have no more energy left. BS. He said that when you feel like you're at 0% energy, you still have 60% left. But that 60% to tap into that is pure pain and suffering. So are you willing to go to that end to tap into that last 60%? You know, that's kind of like the way he describes it, right? It's great, you know. And like, you know, if you want to achieve your maximum potential, then you tap into that 60% of pure pain and misery to get there, right? Because, you know, you'll be unstoppable because no one else is willing to get to go that far, you know.
That's hard to understand though, because, you know, being a little bit higher play and definitely sleep last, I'll just hunker down and work on something until very, very late, until I solve it in the real world. But if it's more like an awareness or an understanding or working through something that's hard or confronting people, that's where I'm like, I haven't passed that barrier yet. So
Right.
I think in applying that philosophy from Goggins, it would be less in the physical and more in the
people stuff.
the people stuff or the ethereal. I don't know. I don't think about that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously, you use it for your own self. The concept applies to everyone, but in your own way, right? So, like for example, like I was like a few months ago, I was feeling a little bit on the insecure side, and I said to myself, it's like, and I knew right away why I was feeling that way. It wasn't because I didn't have an ecosystem of positive emotions. I was doing all the stuff that I enjoyed, but there was something missing, and that last piece of the puzzle that was missing, that was like, it's a combination of Brene Brown and David Goggins. So for Brene Brown, she's a big fan of the Man of the Arena. I don't know if you heard of that speech. Anyways, pretty much her saying is, if you're not that person in the arena getting your ass kicked, and people are like saying bad things to you and hazing you, they're like, oh, you failed, you suck, you're terrible, you're a failure, if you're not that person that's in the arena, getting like stuff thrown at you because you're getting out of your way to pursue your dream, then pretty much then you're not living your life to your fullest, essentially. And
Okay.
and also, if you are that person in the arena, you don't actually have to listen to the opinion of the people outside the arena. You only have to pay attention to the opinion of the people in the arena also. So if you meet someone that's getting their ass kicked because they're really trying their best to pursue their dream, guess what? That's the person you want to talk to, because you're both struggling, and there's getting your ass beaten on a regular basis. And yeah, so pretty much when I was feeling that weight a few months ago, I was like, I think it's because I'm getting a little bit too comfortable and I'm not in the arena. I took my foot out of the arena to chill out and relax, and I didn't go back inside. And I'm not doing anything like David Goggins, like where I have a callous mind, where yes, people are hazing me for being me, essentially, or just pursuing what I want to pursue. And because I wasn't doing that part of the stuff, then I'm feeling bad about myself. So I felt like the perfect combination was a little bit of both, where you are in the arena, you are building that callous mind, toughening yourself up while pursuing your dream, but still having like the fallback, like the safety net, which is the ecosystem of positive emotion. And I think, because like if you're just getting your ass kicked all day, but you don't have that ecosystem of positive emotion, well, your life also sucks. So you need, I think, like the balance of both is the magic thing. So for me, that's like those are like the concepts I live by now. And I check up on myself now. Like I'm like, oh, how do I feel right now? It's like, oh, I don't feel so good. I feel like getting insecure. I'm like, okay, because you're not putting yourself, you're not putting, there's no skin in the game, essentially. No skin in the game. It's things are gonna go bad. So and I'm a big fan of bravery, like being brave. So I'm like, if I feel like I'm being a coward, I need to do something right away that makes me feel like I'm being brave. So that's just my take on it.
I know what you mean. And when things are too easy, it's actually a little concerning sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
You need that pressure, on the coal to become a diamond. And I found work related in the last year, I've been so internally focused on my personal stuff and kind of, I don't know, beating myself up or getting beat up in that way to a degree. And I'm seeing growth and I'm enjoying that. And I feel like I'm starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel there. Like I have a way forward. I'm really excited about that and see what's next. But at the same token, that takes from other aspects of your life. Or my life. So I'm looking at work now and thinking, oh man, when was the last time I got, another certificate? When was the, last time I really thought about my work goals in my career? And when was the last time and it's been like legit over a year since I've really sat down and considered that stuff. And it's amazing how much you can't do it all, but it's incredible what you can do when you really open yourself up to it. So I'm enjoying that, but it's hard because there is a balance, not just in how you approach one thing with the beating yourself up and the emotionality, but also with which things you decide to pursue. And unfortunately, what I found is that I'm dealing with stuff on the urgency basis, the 4 quadrant of urgent to important. And you don't
habits, the 7 habits, the thing in the quadrant.
Sure. Yeah. And so if you don't prioritize this stuff, then you're only gonna be dealing with the stuff that's falling off your plate. And then when you go to self-correct over here, well, you're gonna lose what you have over here. And so I'm trying to work through that, and I'm very intrigued by that. And I'm enjoying becoming more aware that that's what's really happening, and now I can do something about it.
Right. Yeah, no, I as a fellow sleep last person, I can relate to what you're saying also, because you do have to put some thought into that before you decide what next step to take. Otherwise, you're just you're just like a what do you call it? You're just someone putting out fires instead of
or a leaf in the wind,
Yeah, because like someone, if you don't plan your own life, someone is gonna make the plan for you, right? So I mean, it's not always bad. I mean, obviously you have a wife, so maybe she has some plans for you already, and that's fine. It is what it is. I have a girlfriend. We've been together for 9 years, and whatever. And she probably has some plans for us. Whatever, it's fine. It is what it is, right? But for the most part, there should be you need to have your your own plan as well, like long term. I think that's where your Ni+Fi kicks in, right? That's your like what's that?
I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah, like what's gonna make you happy long term, right? And you
don't have kids, right?
No, I'm not married yet. Not yet. Right? I mean,
wait till you get married. Okay. But I'll tell you, man, it's a hell of a thing. and it just, I and maybe many other people just got sucked in and completely myopic.
Yeah.
Because I'm learning that, my capacity is so finite. And when it comes to kids, and oh man, it's just like all that I can do to do, family and work,
right,
and almost anything else just take his backseat, especially for those last 7 years of, having babies. And now we're kind of, I hope, done with the having babies part.
Yeah.
And then to the having kids part that I hope will be less sleep deprived.
Well, how old are you, by the way? You look really young, actually.
I'm 35.
Oh, you're younger than me. Oh my God, you have 3 kids already? Jeez.
3 kids. I got married at 2009. So.
How old were you when you got married?
Well, it's 2022 now.
Yeah.
So 21 or so. I think I just turned 22.
You got married when you were 22?
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, that's pretty young for like nowadays.
Yeah, it definitely is. But
so,
I think I don't regret it. But I do recognize that there are benefits to different pathways in life, and
right,
if you've been able to try out, there would be many benefits to becoming more mature as a person before you get married, or before you have kids. But there's benefits to doing it early as well. So, take what you can get.
Yeah, I have a buddy who got married really young and had kids really young, and his kids are getting old now, so before long he doesn't have to worry about them anymore. Even right now they're old enough that he doesn't have to worry about that much anyways. They're getting, like, the older they get, the more independent they become. So so yeah, there's definitely like a big pro to doing it early.
Well, the biggest thing I would say about doing it early, besides what some people say, which is so that you're young and able to keep up with them. That's a thing, by the way. That's real. But I would say, if you have them late, you have grown before you have them. And so then you're going to be more mature to deal with them. But if you have them early, then they will accelerate your growth and maturity.
Right.
So, I got married at 22, and then started having kids at 27, I think. So 29. I forget. I'm so bad. But you get the idea. It's amazing how whatever path you take in life, you can find meaning, you can find purpose, you can find enjoyment and love. And I'm grateful for that, because sometimes this stuff is hard. It's hard to know that you're doing the right thing or the right path. but it also doesn't really matter what path you take. I mean, within reason.
Right.
As long as you're growing and becoming kind of who you hope you could be, I guess. That's for me.
I think the good thing about what you did is it was because you did so many things that's super tribe oriented that you're less likely to get like tribe hate, and you're in a way you're getting ahead of a normal IP who's just being super selfish. It's the fact that you know,
so.
you know how things work with people, you know, like you work with people, you had kids early, so you have a tribe already. So you're not going to be like incompetent in that area, you know, which is great. That's a huge plus for someone that's your type, you know, like.
Well, and I've sensed that struggle in my own self, but, you know, being raised the way that I was in kind of a religious church kid kind of thing.
Right.
And, you know, that definitely affects you in a way. And so what that did for me was I'm hearing the ideology of the church that I grew up in, and how that's prioritizing families, prioritizing just, I don't know, people, I guess. And that's good because naturally, I think I would really not prefer that.
Right. Yeah.
And I mentioned earlier that I realized I have sought validation, or rather found validation from being married, from having kids. I've found sort of a place where, like, okay, well, this connects me to, like, to be normal and to be able to relate to others, and help me grow my empathy, and help me to step outside my own mind and think about what another goddamn person thinks or feels.
Right.
So that's been I don't want that to be my only source of validation, and that's something I've been thinking about lately. But I definitely have found that to be really important to me, because, you know, if I did, like, if, you know, my family got hit by a bus tomorrow, and I've considered, you know, well, what the heck would I do? You know, I would go live in a van down by the river. I would go live in the woods in a cabin and never see anyone ever, and
right.
become a wilderness guide or something. I don't know. but like, yeah, I feel like, for as hard as it is to be IP, or at least, I don't know about all this stuff, as hard as it is to think and feel the way I do, and as hard as bearing with the needs of children is, and of caring for them and providing for them, and prioritizing them and my wife, as hard as that is, I feel like it just wouldn't have anything worthwhile if it wasn't for them.
Right.
And so that's a little scary sometimes to think about.
Yeah.
But it makes me grateful, and it makes me kind of step outside my momentary frustrations to think about what's really important to me. And so that's definitely it. And I think that's probably, you know, in OP we might call that peacocking. So okay, but
yeah.
but it's still valid. It's still worthwhile.
Right. Well, you know, I'm talking to you, and I do feel like you have a sense of peace, and I think that definitely comes from like using your fourth function. Like the fourth function is what would normally trigger people, but also the fourth function is also what brings you the most sense of accomplishment and achievement, and so it's a source of both of those.
Certainly, when I'm working and doing stuff and accomplishing things, I'm like, and I think maybe to explain that, and why I'm not an ISTP or a thinker and all this stuff, it's like, well, you know, being double activated on that TE, even though it's a fourth function, I feel more responsible for it, and I feel more alive when I'm doing that play as TE. That's when I feel most alive. And I go most insane and rabbit hole when I'm doing my consume.
Yeah.
But what, you know, being able to do play, I guess, is what makes me feel most comfortable and at ease. And but anyways, I'm sorry, we're running out of time here. I realize it's about
I need to wrap it up. But the last comment for me is before we wrap this up is I think for you the next step is to work on that NF, like NF specifically. Like if you can like figure that out, I think you would be complete. You know?
Goggins, Cook, and Brown.
Yeah, you got the 3 names. I mean, those are the ones I personally think is good. But you know, everyone's gonna be different. So you know, you can start with those guys because I don't think you can go wrong. But yeah,
I mean, I'm definitely going to explore that, and it's in particular for the NF and kind of what that means. And I really love being able to define stuff because then I can understand it, become more aware of it, and comprehend, even wrap my head around. Well, how do I move beyond just I'm impacted? I have feelings about this stuff. I'm aware that something's wrong. Yeah. But it's like if I stubbed my toe and didn't understand body awareness. Yeah. Like some sort of non-SE user, like my wife is probably SI, lead SI. And she's always running into things and bruising her thighs or her legs or whatever. Yeah. And I bring that up because, like, you know, how can you just simply not be aware of the physical world around you affecting you? Yeah. This is there. It's physically there. And if you run into it, it will hurt. And she doesn't even notice that she's running into it. And what am I doing all day long? I'm not noticing that I'm running into these NF problems or whatever it is that I'm struggling with. Right. Yeah. That's a good, yeah, that's a good discovery by you to figure that out. I like to throw my wife under the bus. Yeah. All right. Anyways, Donovan, this has been an enjoyable conversation with you, and we'll stay in touch in the Facebook groups and stuff. And take care for the rest of your day. I'd love to chat anytime. So we'll talk later. All right. Take care.